Hello and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve podcast. Today's guest is a returning guest from last episode. It's been literally a day. His name is Ryan Estrada. He is an artist, author, and adventurer. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to talk about something other than how dumb I am. That'd be a nice change of pace.
See,
Although most of my stories are still going to be on that theme.
I didn't really take it like that. I mean, I know where you're coming from on that, but I feel like a lot of the time with near death experiences, it's like it's either really bad luck or I suppose one could argue like you make the wrong decision. Sometimes you end up in these scenarios, but it's like I don't know. I always think you're beholden to the choices in front of you. You know what I'm saying? Like not every situation is always like something you can control, or maybe you just that's the best available choice you have. Like the example of the story you gave of when you were in Africa and you nearly got eaten. It's like, well, okay, fair enough. Maybe you didn't have to wander out as far, but then again, if you get lost, you get lost. I mean, it's what do you do? Do you know what I mean?
Well, well, I mean, also like those experiences like made me better at getting those situations because later on I went to Mexico and another one of those things where I didn't know where I was going. I had to change buses in Juarez, I think it's called, and then like I didn't research what Juarez was, and then later I watched like Sicario about like how terrifying it is for like armed soldiers to go in, like, and then someone tried to mug me because I'm just walking around at like 5 a.m. I had like an hour to kill till on my bus, and then someone came up and tried to mug me, and I'm like, I've been through enough situations, I can survive this one. So I just pretended like I didn't understand Spanish, and he's like getting really frustrated with me, and then he didn't have a weapon, but he threatened to karate chop me, and then he's like, "You money no, me chop 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 muerte." And I'm just like pretending I understand. I'm like, "Oh, you study karate? That's cool. I was in Korea. I studied taekwondo, which I didn't." And I just kept talking and talking, pretending like he's my best friend. And we talked for like 20 minutes until we got like the market started opening. I'm like, "Oh, hey, they're opening. I'm gonna go to Torta. You want to go to Torta with me?" And they're like, "Ah," and walked away. Just didn't bother me.
Wow.
I just pretended like we were best friends, and I was too dumb to figure out he's trying to mug me. And he's like, "This kid's an idiot." I'm like, didn't mug me, did you?
That's genius. And you weren't scared that whole time? I mean, you said that you
No.
understood, so you understood Spanish, so you knew exactly what this guy was saying to you
Yeah,
as
I knew
well.
exactly what he was saying. You know, he didn't have a weapon, and he's also like a foot shorter than me. He has to get on his tippy toes to karate chop me in the neck. But like, I'm just like, whatever. We'll see what happens. I can just wait him out.
I just love how blasé you're about it. Like, I was talking to my housemate about yourself yesterday, and just kind of how calm you remain in these situations. And it just blew my mind because it's just like I know in those situations I'd be freaking out. I'd try my best, but I'd freak the fuck out, man. I don't know how you do it.
My brain is broken.
Or it's got something that we haven't got. Like, do you know what I mean? The
Mhm.
average person's. I mean, I don't know. A lot of people talk about that as a strength, being able to remain calm in the
Yeah.
face of adversity. You know. I'd like to talk a bit about how you came to South Korea. I know you touched on it a little bit yesterday, but I wanted to kind of delve into this and also sort of delve into South Korean life in general because I find it's quite an interesting country. So, talk us through the story behind you moving to South Korea.
I never planned on traveling at all. Like my whole thing when I was young is I'm going to move to California and work for Disney because that's what literally everyone said you're supposed to do if you're an artist. Even though I grew up making comics, I'm like, that everyone only knows one job in that career. So they're like, oh, you got to move to work for Disney. You got to move to work for Disney. So I tried to do that. I went to animation school, and the year I graduated was the year the entire animation industry got laid off, and there were literally no jobs whatsoever. And so I'm on Instant Messenger complaining about it to a friend at 3 a.m. And she's like, "Well, did you hear about this thing in Korea where they're so desperate for teachers that they'll buy you a plane ticket and an apartment and fly you out there?" And I'm like, "No, but I'm going to do it." And then had a job an hour later, moved there, and I just really liked. I really liked it. I realized I love traveling, and and I can since I'm working through the internet, so I can go wherever I want. And yeah, I just kept going from there.
So, a couple of things there. When the whole industry is laid off, like, what are your first kind of thoughts when this happens? Like, Because I mean, you've spent a long time studying this. You know, it's a
Yeah,
big commitment in your life, and then you find out maybe this is pointless at this point.
yeah, yeah. I mean, well, also like halfway through studying animation, I realized I don't actually like animating. It's a grueling process.
Oh,
But
really?
like, if you have a creative thought, maybe it'll take like 5 years and team 100 people to make it a reality. But also in the industry, it'll take you like 40 years of grunt work before you're allowed to have a creative thought. And I'm like, you know, I guess it was kind of a relief that like I realized I didn't want to do that. I love making comics. And so, like, when I was able to just travel overseas and make comics, um, I realized that I really kind of liked that experience. Like, actually, that was the first time I went to Korea to teach, and then I decided I wanted to keep traveling the world. I wanted to go anywhere but Korea because I'd already been there. I wanted to go all these places, but then I got offered a job that I couldn't refuse. Someone wanted me to develop English books for them,
Mm.
and be like the head of their department, develop the books, hire the illustrators. If I wanted, I could hire myself and get double paid. Uh, and they're going to pay me like 4,000 bucks a month, give me an apartment. And I'm like, I guess I got to do it. And they're like, yeah, but you have to be here on Monday. And I'm like, it's Saturday, and it's like a 40-hour flight. And they're like, you need to get on a flight right now. So I had to like borrow money to get there, and I flew to like Paju Book City, which is like where the whole publishing industry is. And I go in this top of this giant glass high rise, sit down, and I'm like, "Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm here for the job." And they say 6 a.m. Monday morning, and they're like, "Okay, please sit in this chair until 6 p.m." And I'm like, "What?" And they made me sit in a chair in an empty office for 12 hours. At which
What?
point, at which point, nothing happened, and they made me wait for another 2 hours.
Well, they didn't offer you like some coffee or some shit, like just
No, just kind of close the door. And then at 8 p.m., the guy I'd talked to walks in the room like to turn the light off with a jacket over his shoulders. Oh yeah, you're here. I asked around. No one knows who hired you, and we're not really hiring, so you gotta leave.
oh my
and,
god.
um, and so I'm like, what do you mean no one hired me? He's like, yeah, I. They said I had to be here Monday. He's like, who? And I told him. He's like, he doesn't work here anymore. You got to get out of here.
Well, he
And
got
so
fired or something, and then you just
yeah, well, I went out and I called the agent that had set up the job. I'm freaking out. And he's like, don't worry, I found the guy. And I'm like, what do you mean you found him? He's like, uh, misunderstanding. He's at a different company now. I'll take you there tomorrow. And so then we went from like the glass high rise to we went to a darkened alley full of garbage, at the end of which there was a rusted metal door,
oh
behind
no.
which there was like a spiral metal staircase with missing steps, at the bottom of which there was a tiny sweatshop printing Chinese takeout menus, at the back of which was another closet in which was the offices of J Bomb Shin, the guy who had hired me. His name was J Bomb. And he looked exactly like Kim Jong Il. He had like the dark glasses in his dark closet and had this comically long cigarette, and he's just sitting in his chair. He has like two leather chairs in his closet, and it's a closet, so like they're this far apart. So I have to sit in one of the leather chairs, and like our legs are touching, like his legs are slid in between mine like a little sandwich, and we're just staring at each other. And he and the agent are talking in Korean for like hours. And I'm like, what's he saying? He's like, don't worry about it. And I'm like, what have I got myself into? And he's like, yeah, this guy doesn't speak English. We got to wait for his translator. I'm like, why don't you translate? He's like, he won't let me.
What do you mean
And
he
then
won't let you?
he won't let him. And after about 4 hours, my agent's like, well, I don't know what's going on. I got to go. You can handle this, right? And then he walks out, closes the door. J Bomb goes, now we can talk. And he had secret English. And he goes, I did not really move to a new publishing company. I was fired. But I do not accept that. I'm going to do a publishing company coup, and I'm going to take over the company that fired me, and you're going to help me. And as soon as I'm the head of the company that fired me, then I can pay you. And so he's a crazy person
Yeah.
that tricked me into moving to Korea. So I ended up stuck back there. But
Shit.
but you know, I I now did not have enough because I had to borrow money just to get the ticket to get there. They were supposed to reimburse me, and now I'm not being reimbursed. And so I'm like, I guess I'm stuck in Korea another year. So that's why I stuck around longer. But when I was there, my friendships there became closer, and I went to a lot of other places, but I always came back to Korea because I loved it there.
Okay.
And yeah.
When this happened, when this sinking realization is settling in, what's going through your mind? What are your next steps, moving forward? Because I mean, the guy's tricked you. He's clearly, this is not a genuine thing. As you say,
Mhm.
you're now stuck there. What do you do?
Well, yeah, again, my mind thinks about narrative, not about my danger. So I'm like, his name is J Bomb. That's perfect. That's a good little note in the story. Like, I'm thinking about like remembering the leather chairs. I'm like, got to remember this leg sandwich thing. That's going to make the story interesting. But then I walk out when I leave, and they're like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I gotta go." He's like, "It's not time for you to go yet," and I'm like, "I think it is. You gotta run." I
Yo,
actually
hold on,
stayed there
hold on,
till
run it
five.
back up a second. It's not time for you to leave yet. Like,
Yeah,
that's kind of a scary thing to say to someone. Like,
yeah,
I can leave when I want, pal. What do you mean?
yeah.
Like, is
Well,
that
he's
like a
like, you got a 9 to 5 job. It's not, I'm like, I actually did wait until 5 o'clock. I was there until 5 o'clock,
you haven't
and
been
there,
paid anything? Would you?
yeah,
Oh,
other
this is mad.
other stuff is going on. I'm getting little bits and pieces of story, but eventually at 5 o'clock, they're like, "We're not done talking yet." I'm like, "Yeah, it's 5 o'clock. You said 5 o'clock." They're like, "Yeah, but we got more to talk about." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's 5 o'clock. I gotta go, man. It's not time for you to go. No, I gotta go." And I ran. And after that, I'm just like, "What do I do now?" But I knew I had such close friends there.
Oh,
I'm like,
okay.
why don't I just go back to teaching a little bit, make some money to
Oh,
make
of
some
course, yeah,
relief.
because I understand you've been there before, so you could like build upon that and then sort
Yeah,
of, right. I get you. I get
yeah,
you. I get you.
yeah. The first trip I went there as a teacher, that was
Yeah.
fine. The second trip that this all went down. If it had happened in a new country, I'm terrified. Fine. That almost happened once. I had later I was offered a job in China, and they wanted me to be the head of their animation program at a university. And again, it was going to be huge pay, housing, airfare, all of that. And then like the day before, like I'm about to go to bed to get up in the morning, get on the flight, and they call me up. They're like, "Hey, just wanted to check in. We're really excited to see you tomorrow. I'm going to be the one picking you up. Look for me at the airport. Blah blah blah. Oh, just a couple changes." And I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Well, you're not going to be the head of the department anymore. You're going to be a teacher." I'm like, "Oh, really? Okay." And they're like, "And you're not teaching animation anymore. You're teaching English." I'm like, "Oh, really?" And they're like, "And it's not at the university anymore. It's at a private academy." I'm like, "Okay, it's not really the job I signed up for." And they're like, "And it's not really one academy. It's like six academies. There's like one class at one class at the other. They're on different sides of the city, and we don't provide transportation, but it's only like an hour on the bus for each one." And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Also, it's not $4,000 a month anymore. It's 1,000. Oh, and also we don't provide housing anymore. You can sleep on my couch the first night, but after that you have to figure something out. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow at the airport." And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I'm not getting on the plane. Like, we already paid for the flight. You promised to come." I'm like, "This is a whole different deal. Housing is more than $1,000. I'm going to be
Yeah.
homeless." And she was really angry at me. But I'm so glad she told me that before I got on the airplane.
Yeah.
Because you
And
can imagine
I mean,
showed up.
it's the classic thing as well. It's like, I know you said you spat it out that it's not what I signed up for, but like, I mean, had you signed a contract prior to that, just out of curiosity?
I don't recall. This was
Okay.
like
Well, even
many
if
years
you
ago.
had, it's like so much has changed that like
Yeah,
it's just defunct at this point. Like it's
yeah,
a crazy breach of contract at this stage. So
yeah.
it's like
Like,
nothing.
but like also, if I showed up for the first day in China and find out that the contract has changed, like, do I know how to legally take action? Like, no.
See, the thing is,
If I'm homeless in China, am I going to be able to figure out how to sue them? No.
I've been in like somewhat similar situations before, and one thing that always confuses me is that irritation from the other person, like the anger, like, well, what do you mean? And it's like, but you've changed the goalposts positions. Like this is not the same thing. It's like, how can you get annoyed at me when I'm like, no, like, I mean, I almost feel like turning around to the person and being like, would you sign up for that? Like, no, of course not. No one would. So
Yeah.
like, why are you getting annoyed at me? I don't get that, man. I don't get that. Let's talk a bit more about your time in South Korea. Walk us through some of the best things about South Korea in comparison to life in America.
Well, I mean, Korea, I love living in Korea. It's just infrastructure is set up so well. Everything you need is everywhere. I love transportation in Korea, just being able to get around. Like I can walk out of my door anywhere I want to go in the country. There's a cheap transportation leaving immediately.
Oh
I can get
wow,
anywhere in the city in like an hour for like $2, less than $2. I can get anywhere in the country in like less than 4 hours for like $30. Um,
that's amazing.
I can ride my bike to the opposite side of the country. I once rode my bike to Seoul. Um, the entire trail, you never see a car. Like it's all along rivers through forests and stuff. And at the end, they give you a medal. Um, like at anything, like I remember bringing my wife here to Michigan, where I am now, and telling her we need to find a car. She's like, "Oh, we can just take a bus." I'm like, "Oh, there's no bus." She's like, "What do you mean there's no bus?" I'm like, "There's no bus." And she's like, "Well, what do you do if you don't have a car?" I'm like, "You just don't leave your house." That's how Michigan works.
Yeah, that's
And
right. Yeah, some places are just like in the
yeah,
States. So yeah, you have to have a car. You can't get nowhere.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, I love, like the supermarket is literally like every apartment complex has like two supermarkets. If I need something, I walk out the door and get it. And just like you have the city infrastructure, but then like I can walk across the street, climb a mountain, be away from civilization. We got beaches, we got everything. I love looking, and like the support of the arts is amazing. From my apartment in Korea, I can look out the window, and just from my apartment, I can see there's the Global Webtoon Center where they offer like free studio space to cartoonists.
Wow.
Um, there's a place where they rent out like free equip or check out free equipment to filmmakers. You can get cameras, you can get boom mics, you can get green screens. You can check out like a warehouse sized green screen room for free. You can check out a theater to premiere your film. There's spaces for YouTubers. There's spaces for like editing bays for audio. There's sound studios you can use for free for musicians, and just like anything you need, Korea supplies it. So like I just love living there.
We all need to move to Korea, man. What the it sounds amazing. All right, but there's always something bad. What are the worst things about South Korea? Come on, dish it
Let's
up.
see. I don't know. I've been so spoiled in Korea. Like I can't really think of anything I don't like about it. Yeah, I mean, we do have like an angry guy with nuclear weapons right across the border, but it's weird in Korea. Like nobody talks about it. Like
Really?
people will call me in America like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" I'm like, "What?" They're like, "The North Korea said this," and I'm like, "I don't know. We don't really talk about. It. We don't worry about them. We know because in Korea they they know that like he's just trying to get on the news. Like he's not really gonna
Yeah.
promise. Like he just says stuff or does stuff to like get on the news. And so people in uh, people in Korea just don't even worry about it.
No, they didn't take him seriously at all,
No,
or the
not at
threat.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like there is like we do have the DMZ, the border between North and South Korea. Like there's that uh, little like line where a North Korean soldier and a South Korean soldier like stare each other down all day, and like I've visited there. And yeah, I mean,
What's the atmosphere there like?
it's very tense. Like you're not allowed to talk. Like they just stare each other down, and like they're afraid of like anything could like break like decades of peace. But technically, the war never ended. It's still going on. They just stare at each other instead of fighting. Um,
It's just that never-ending staring contest.
yeah, basically. There was a period where they opened it as a peace thing. They opened up a mountain in North Korea where South Korean tourists could go climb the mountain and say they'd been to North Korea in the woods. But then one day, a woman stepped off the trail to take a photo, and they shot her because she stepped off the trail.
Oh my God.
And so they closed that. We don't do that anymore. And we were back to like, you know what, let's not do these little peace things. Let's just keep our distance.
I was gonna say because something that's interesting about the entrance into North Korea thing, from what I'd heard, is that generally speaking, you can't really get there from South Korea,
Yeah.
so you have to go through China way, and then there's like a you either get a flight or there's like a boat or something.
Yeah.
You get there
Yeah.
and you sort of essentially like smuggle yourself on there, and then
Well, yeah.
you
Yeah. South Koreans and Americans are not allowed to go. So me and my wife are like out. Uh, Other countries can go, but you fly in from China and you are with a guide who shows you what you're allowed to see.
right.
But I can't do any of that, and I'm
Is it
not sure I would want to because I'd be funding things that I didn't want to fund by doing it.
just to run it back though? You said South Koreans and Americans are not allowed to go. Is that like a legal thing? Like, as
Yeah,
in, so even if you would go through that passage and you would
yeah,
just turn up like everyone else, they would just refuse
yeah,
entry.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's exceptions of specific reasons that
Hmm.
people are allowed in, but just as a tourist visa, no way. That's why that mountain was such a big deal. It was like this peace offering that, like, yes, you can come into our country, but you can only see this mountain. And then the guards are just so it's drilled into them from birth, like you follow the rules exactly no matter what. That he's like, that lady stepped off the trail. I told her not to do that. And yeah, not a great ending.
It's just crazy to think that like this nation, like Korea, is divided in that way, and you've got one nation that, like, from what I've seen and heard, I mean, obviously you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but South Korea very much has always kind of been quite futuristic as far as its technological capabilities and where it's at, and then you've got North Korea, which is by all intents and purposes kind of like culturally stuck in the 50s. Like they do have access to I believe some sort of intranet, like not internet, but like some sort of countrywide internet thing. And then I saw a really good documentary on this. I'll just briefly outline this because I don't want to deviate too much. This is about you. It's not about North Korea. But since we're on the topic, there was a really good video on YouTube that basically explains how North Korea works, like as a nation.
Mm.
And a lot of it is what you mentioned before. Kim Jong Un every now and again makes a threat, but it's like cyclical. So every like 5 years or so, he'll make some threats. He's basically just trying to get the UN or whoever to give him money. They'll then use that money that they get because they'll get given like 100 million or something, a couple of 100 million from either the States or China, more likely. And then they'll use that money and budget that over the next 5 or 10 years. That, in theory, is mostly how they survive. But then the other part of it, which I found even more interesting, is that there is a lot of, let's say, illegal trade done in Pyongyang. And I think that's how you pronounce that. Correct me if
Yeah,
I'm wrong. And people from around the world will go there and trade in Pyongyang, and the government knows about it, and they tolerate it to an extent. It's weird because it's like you hear all these things about how supposedly everyone's supposed to have like a set amount of money, and because it's essentially like a version of communism, I think. Um, but then obviously everyone is in poverty for the most part, so then people have to find whatever way they can to survive, and people do have jobs and such, but obviously the amount of money they have is limited. So you get people selling illegal goods and stuff in the streets, which are not actually allowed in North Korea. But again, the government tolerates it. But every once in a while, they'll just suddenly start being like, "Oh, we don't tolerate this. We don't tolerate this," and they'll go on like a kind of like a binge purge scenario, and then it's back to normal. And I've
yeah,
always kind of find that interesting, like a nation who says all this stuff that you can't do, but then they're aware of it, and they know that without that trade, they can't continue to function. So as much as the government says this stuff to its people, like the people and the government both understand that the country can't function without that stuff.
yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned like the difference between North and South Korea, but like when the border was put in place, they both basically started at the exact same point. They
Exactly.
both had dictators take over, but that's what when we wrote Band Book Club, that's like what we were covering is like Korea, South Korea, like they stood up and they were
Hmm.
able to stop it. And now Korea's changed so much that it's like this amazing democracy with very futuristic everything. Like, and then North Korea, like they couldn't, they didn't. They didn't beat the dictators. And now the dictators have so much power, they control everything. And like they call again in Korea, they South Korea they called it a democracy, but it wasn't. But they would, that's why books about democracy were banned because they didn't want people to be like, wait a minute, we don't have that. And they call North Korea communist, but there are the elite and the non-elite, and there's like different waves of people, and they say I forget what they call. There's some term they use for like a certain step of communism that we're leading up to real communism, but because of America and they're messing with it, like we have to have this different communism where we have the elite and the poor people. But don't worry, we're working on it. And so like that's why like I mean the elite get away with whatever they want basically until someone wants a reason to get rid of them, then they look at everything they've ever done and sentence them to death. But the poor, like, if they're caught with a book they're not supposed to have, or they're caught, like, watching a foreign movie, they're not allowed to watch anything from outside the country. I heard that sometimes North Korea will, like, turn off the power
Yep.
and then run from door to door to see what tapes are stuck in the VCR, so nobody can take them out and make sure they're not watching like Rush Hour 2 or something they're not supposed to watch. That's
Jeez.
on an ancient VHS tape. Um,
It's
so
crazy to
yeah,
think
it's
they're
just
still using
wild.
VHS tapes as well in 2023. Like, what? It's mad. Um, Another question I want to ask you. I know you sort of briefly touched on it before about how, for the most part, South Koreans don't really they're not really particularly phased about North Korea's latest threats and what they're doing and such. But I was kind of curious because news footage and coverage is always different wherever you go. Like naturally, American coverage, British coverage of those nations is going to be it's going to be biased. It's going to reflect a certain truth that that particular company wants to promote. Some of it might be actual fact, but you can never really trust it. So this is a problem we have in the world in general right now, is just sources and such. But given that you're like right on the doorstep, I wondered what the kind of news coverage is like in South Korea of North Korea. Like, do they often discuss it? Do they have like a unique insight maybe that other nations don't have? Like, what's that like?
Mostly ignored. Like I don't hear much about about it. Like it's just like who cares about them? They're going to do their thing. And when something big happens, they'll talk about it. But I mean, mostly when they talk about North Korean news, it's mostly like making fun of their news announcers and their weird, very specific
And they do
shouting.
this on the news.
Yeah, I mean, from what I hear, when people talk about it, everyone I know is ready to do the impression of the newscasters where they like do this very specific where their voice goes up and then it goes down, and then their voice goes up and then it goes down, and they find North Korean news funnier than they do scary, I think, just because of that specific thing. But yeah, I mean, like the news coverage of anything is different wherever you go. One of my favorite things like early on when I lived in Korea, one day my mom called me freaking out. Dude, are you okay? Were you hurt in the anti-American riots? I'm like, what anti-American riots? She's like, it was all over the news. And I'm like, you mean the candlelight vigil? I was there. I had a candle.
Interesting.
Because some American soldiers had like not been paying attention and like they were driving a tank near a military base and ran over some kids.
Oh
And
no.
I went to the candlelight vigil, but the U.S. news reported it as anti-American riots, and I'm like, we're all holding candles. Some kids died. It's pretty
That's
sad.
that's interesting how news is manipulated like in that way, because that's a completely different story right there.
Yeah.
That's not the same thing. Madness. What have been your most memorable experiences during your time in South Korea?
See, one of my favorite things I've done is there's this farm that my friends and I would go visit a lot. My One of our friends, her mother had this farm that the family had had for you know many generations, and it's this little persimmon orchard village with like four houses. Literally, four people live there, and we would go there on Solal, which is the first full moon of the year, and they had their own traditions. And basically, every year we would go there to ghost bust. We'd be ghostbusters.
I wanted to ask you about this. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Go on.
yeah. Um, basically, they have a thing that every year on the first full moon, you have to like the ghosts like build up over the winter, and they're like they come in from the cold and they hide places and you got to spook them out. So they give us all like the traditional drums and gongs and things, and we'd march and we play. We got to stand in every doorway, like go to the outhouse and play your music, go to the shed, go to the barn, go to the house, go to all the bedrooms, and just play this really loud music until you scare them away. And like I don't know how to play these instruments, I don't know the song, so I always like try and play the Ghostbusters theme song with these instruments and sing it like a little mix of the two countries Ghostbuster things, and then after that you go trick or treating for like your food. Like every house makes one of the dishes, and you bring a bowl, and this lady gives you rice, this lady gives you soup, and then you all come together and celebrate your ghost free house. And that I did that for several years. Would always bring like a new batch of foreigners, very confused people that like, we're doing what? We're ghost busting? I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's go bust some ghosts. And like being able to introduce people to that was always great.
Is there any unique traditions surrounding that? Like, I'll give you an example. Like when I lived in Estonia, I remember that to cleanse the house, you would pour salt around the perimeter of the house and along the doorways and such, and then that, in theory, was to purify it and push away the dark spirits. Was there any like similar um, traditions in addition to what you just outlined there?
Yeah, I mean, for the ghosts, it was just the music because it's really, really loud music. And the idea is just the sound. They'll be like, I ain't got time for this. I'm gonna go back to the mountains. It's quieter. Um, but like, yeah, I mean, there's lots of traditions of like that. I mean, just different foods that you make, and there's all these like. Actually, one of the books that Kensuke and I are writing takes place at a village like this, and we go through all the different like you know the rice wine you drink under the first full moon to make your hearing better, and the nuts that you chew to make good luck. And it's all traditions. But with ghosts, that's all you need is to shout them out with some loud clanging. Kind of like if you're getting cats out of a barn, you just hit a pot and they all scatter.
It kind of blows my mind to think about ghosts as being almost like cats or something. Like you just have to like be like, come on, shoot, shoot,
Yeah.
shoot. Like I can't imagine that. But I guess yeah, I suppose it could work that way. All right, now we get to the portion where I'm just going to ask you like a bunch of random stuff because your life is just full of just interesting stuff and just I'm still blown away by all of this. So I'm just going to fire these questions at you. I hope you don't mind.
All right, do it.
How did you accidentally invent the word normcore and what does it mean?
Well, there was this period where I decided to do a thing like there's a thing called a guest comic where like with other web cartoonists, like one day they'll say, hey, do you sometimes it'll be a week, they'll be like, I'm gonna have a different artist draw my comic every day this week. And it's a kind of a way for like you to reach someone else's audience, and they say, oh, I like this guest comic, why don't I check out his comic? And so I decided I wanted to secretly make a guest comic for as many different comics as I could and premiere them all in the same day, unannounced. So like anytime anyone went to read any comic that day, it's by me, and they're like, "How'd this happen?" And I forget how many of the first year. The second year, I believe I did 50. Um, but the process of doing that, in order to have 50 comics ready to go in one day, it's like 2 months of nonstop making comics.
Yeah.
And like I was basically in a fugue state of just like make a comic, got to make another comic. And I was actually working so much that like I was actually working 24 hours a day because I was working in my sleep. Because like one of the days I was working all day, time to go to bed, and I dreamed that I got up and went to my desk and kept drawing. And then I woke up and I'm like, oh crap, all the comics disappeared. Uh, and then the next night, the same thing happened. I dreamed I got up and went to the desk. I'm like, wait a minute, I think this is a dream. My house doesn't look like this. So I realized the only time I've been that clear in my dream, I'm like, okay, I'm in a dream. I know if I draw something, it's going to disappear. But if I write and then think really hard about remembering it, I can draw the comic when I wake up. And so I did that. I wrote a bunch of scripts and I'm like, remember this, remember this, remember this, and draw it. And I don't know if this comic came out of one of them, but basically, a lot of the comics even I don't get because I'm just working nonstop. And one of them was for a comic called Templar Arizona, and that comic is all about like weird subcultures. And the punchline of the comic was just like we went through all these different dangerous subcultures someone's warning someone against. And she said like the scariest one is normcore. And they're the people that like they only use slang that's been on a sitcom. They only wear like clothes that you can get off the rack at like Kmart or whatever, like just the most basic, perfectly normal. And the joke of the comic was like that's the stupidest possible fashion trend. And it's like all these people that do weird, unique things are scared of them. And so I made that comic, forgot I made it because I made it in that weird fugue state. And then years later, I got tagged in a tweet that like made no sense about like the words of the year list, Oxford English Dictionary, about how normcore was a runner up. And I'm like, why are you tagging me in this? And they're like, you invented the word. I'm like, what? And they had to show me my own comic and be like, this is the word from your comic. And I'm like, I forgot that word existed and it's runner up for word of the year. And then they showed me, like, I Googled it and I saw this entire history of articles about normcore in like Time magazine, People magazine,
Oh man.
like um, and then it started showing up in like it started showing up in sitcoms like Brooklyn Nine-Nine had a normcore joke, Parks and Rec had a normcore joke. I don't understand any of this, and then I eventually investigated. I found out that a year after that, there's something called a trend forecasting firm that like figures out what the new trends are going to be, and it seems like it's kind of a joke magazine that people take seriously. And I emailed them. They said, yeah, they'd seen my comic and they made normcore one of their trends, and then everybody wrote about it. But everybody wrote about how stupid it was. But because there were so many articles about how stupid it was, it caught on and it became a thing. And now people still send me pictures every day of like normcore displays at their local like clothing store, interviews where like they're promoting the new Avengers movie and saying Hawkeye is normcore. Like it just this word that I forgot I made up has become a thing. I'm getting quoted in fashion magazine. Like just the other day, my agent's like, "Did you know you're quoted in a fashion magazine today?" I'm like, "Oh, it happened."
Can't help but envy you, man. Like you did something by accident and it becomes a worldwide sensation. That's
Mm.
insane. Speaking of worldwide sensations, you hold the world record for consecutive comic book making, which, based on what you outlined before, makes a lot more sense. Talk us through how you achieved this accomplishment.
Well, there's a thing called a 24-hour comic that artists do. You take 24 hours, make a 24-page comic, draw a page per hour, and it's kind of like a little like challenge you give yourself to like, you know, we spend so much time on these books, like let's see what I can do in one day. And I tried to do that once on there's a holiday called 24-hour comic day, and I failed. I only got 12 pages done. So I'm like, I need to go into training so I get better at this. So I did a 48-hour comic where I did it for 2 days, and then I did a 72-hour comic. And then one day I decided to just let's go wild and do a 168-hour comic. Let's do an entire week drawing a page per hour. And so I just locked myself in a camper with a big old stack of paper and some pens. People on the internet were throwing suggestions to me, and I was making a story based on the suggestions live and drawing it. And so for a week, I was just like making this comic book. I would just like draw as fast as I could until I like literally passed out on the page. And I wake up and like wipe off the drool and figure out how long I was asleep and how many pages I need to make up. And I went for a week, and I'm like I'm almost done. I'm almost done. And then someone emailed me and said, "Guess what? Just to prove how dumb this is." And I'm like, "I know it's dumb. That's the point." but he's like, just to prove how dumb it is, I made my own 168-hour comic, but I finished first. He was just doing like a really sketchy one. Like he'd wake up in the morning and just do a bunch of really sketchy pages, whereas I like, and then go to work and do his job. And I'm like at this desk all day, and I'm like, what? I haven't slept in a week. So I'm like, if I add like 10 extra hours, I forget how many hours it was. If I had 10 extra hours and do like a prologue to my comic, are you going to beat me again? He's like, no, you can have your thing. So I then didn't go to bed, but stayed up an extra day and made a prologue explaining what the comic was, and then had the record.
How did you survive during that time? Did you still eat and drink and
Yeah,
do all these things,
I
different
play.
things?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
just
It's
because,
just like you gotta like I just had in my head like I just thought of like golf terms, like how under par, over par am I, and like okay. I'm like 2 under par, but I need some time to eat. So then I'm gonna eat and then figure out a fast page to make. And like one of my favorite moments of those is early on. I was already starting to be behind, and then I wrote myself into a corner because I wrote a scene where there's a car crash, and I'm like, what did I do? I'm already behind. Now I got to draw an entire car crash, and I lift up the page, and I had like. I'm using marker and I'm on like my parents' table, so I didn't want to get marker all over. So I just had a piece of paper under it to catch all the stray like marker lines, and I picked it up, and it's like this page is just covered in like splotches of ink, and I'm like, oh, I took out my whiteout and I wrote crash in the white on top of it. And I'm like, boom, done, page finished. And so like you find little ways to get pages done faster. And that's what's nice about these challenges. You learn things that, you realize like, wow, I did this in a week. If I had extra time, I'd do this, this, and this. But also this saved me time. And like there's things I did that I still use today where like there's a scene where it's supposed to show this kid feels really lonely, nobody pays attention to him in his class, and I sketched out like his entire like, kindergarten classroom and all the cubbies and all the desks, and then I'm like, like the kids are in the background laughing at him. I realized I don't have time to ink all this, so I just filled it all in black, and I realized like, oh, this actually works so much better because it shows that he's alone. Like you focus on him and the emptiness around him. And so now when I do a book, like I think about that. Like, even if I have the time to draw this, is all this detail going to make the page better, or is it going to, just distract the eye and give me more work to do? So you learn a lot from it. And by the end, like at the beginning of something like that, even if you're doing 24-hour comic, like you end up way behind and you're like, I don't have time to sleep. What am I going to do? But then you learn all the tricks and you get into a rhythm. And then you're like, oh, I just finished like 10 pages in the last hour. I can take a nap.
have you had major companies approach you about, you know, doing artwork for them or animation for them? Because I've looked into your comics, all the drawings you do. I mean, it's for those who haven't seen it, go check out Ryan's work. It's amazing, and that's really an understatement. So I presume that like the bigger companies, the animation companies, would have like contacted you. Like, have you received, for instance, I don't know, offers from say like Disney, for example? Like, talk us through that.
Well, I am not legally permitted to answer the specific question that the last word you said implies. But let's say there's a company
Interesting.
that came to me that wanted to make basically that 168-hour comic that I made. I introduced a character named Aki Akuyama, and she got her own. I made her own spin-off comic, and that comic was like rejected by every single publisher, every single agent. So I just put it on my website, forgot about it, and then like 15 years later, I got an email from a company that may or may not have been mentioned in the course of this discussion, and they asked, "Hey, are the rights to this comic available?" And I'm like, I thought it was a joke. I'm like, I forgot I made that comic. Yes, they're available, and they optioned it to make a TV show for their streaming service.
Wow.
And it was in production for a while, but then one day, like it moved to a new producer, and the new producer got me on the phone and talked to me, and he's like, "Look, I'm really excited about this project. I want it to be your vision. I don't want to change anything. I love everything about it. I love the the cast. I love the story. One thing, this is who I want to play Aki Akuyama." And it was the whitest child that has ever existed in the history of the earth. And I'm like, that's who you want to play Aki Akuyama, whose name is in the title of the book. Uh, and I gently suggested that maybe they cast a Japanese or Asian actor to play it, and he was so upset that he canceled the show.
Huh.
And so that's why I don't have a show.
Do you think that was more because it kind of destroyed his particular vision for it, or
Well, I think what I figured out later, I believe that he was just tasked with finding a vehicle for that child, and he thought this could be it. And I'm like,
I
you know
see.
what? Why don't we have her play the second lead, who looks exactly like her, Aki's friend, who literally has the exact same hairstyle as her and looks like her? And he's like, I'll think about that. But then the next day, um, they said that our company is no longer developing new projects, and I'm like, you
It's
know
a
that
shame.
everybody knows every project you develop, right? That's not a very good lie. Like, I just read about 14 new greenlit today, so
Oh, mad. Oh, that's interesting. Why would you lie about something like that? Whatever.
yeah.
People are strange. I've had similar dealings with people over the years, and I'm just like, just say it as it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to work together, it's okay. Just say that. Don't lie. Lying makes you look worse. It's
Yeah.
like if you turn around and you say, I'm not interested, or like, for instance, I've had people that haven't wanted to appear on the show, um, but they didn't tell me that.
Yeah.
They just didn't show up, or they
Mm-hmm.
cancelled, but they didn't, give me any indication if it was
Yeah.
going to happen or not. I'm like, listen, it's okay if you change your
Yeah.
mind. So I just say that now for anyone that does appear on the show again in the future. If you change your mind, it's okay. Just please
Yeah.
let me know.
Well, I mean, but one thing that all those stories I told in the last episode helped me with is like when things like that go horribly wrong, like it does stress me out. Um, and I'm able to like learn from that because like other people would think that is like a career setback failure, but that failure actually made my career because uh, it was because that went that went so badly and other things didn't work out that the lawyer I've been working with was like, you know what, you need an agent. Let me set you up with somebody. And then he set me up with William Morris Entertainment, WME, who like
Wow.
represent like basically any celebrity you can imagine. They represent them. And then and I met with their film and TV people, and I'm like, you guys cover books too? And they're like, oh, we'll introduce you to someone at WME Books. And then they set me up with WME Books who represent like Oprah. And so complete like this is because I had that terrible failure, like it led to better things. So there's nothing wrong with failing, and I think it's great.
I always think about that. Unfortunately, my life is littered with a lot of failures, and like I'm trying to become an actor. I've been trying to pursue it since 2019, and even this year, like I set myself a goal of like this is the year I turn 30 this year. This is the year it's gonna happen, right? And then if anything, it's mostly just been like one step forward, five steps back, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. My approach is just keep going, keep trying. I don't really know what else to try, but it's
Yeah.
like when it comes to things like getting an agent or trying to find work or whatever, I find I'm very much in like a catch-22 scenario
Mm-hmm.
where it's like something promising happens and then back to square one, or
Yeah.
seems like something's going somewhere and then it goes nowhere. And I don't know. Um, I do think about like what you just said about considering how the negatives can lead to positives,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also sort of trying to set my expectations low as well, and sort of understand that it might not work out, doesn't work
Mm-hmm.
out for everyone. And that's a hard one to swallow. But at the same time, doing shows like this is always kind of a source of inspiration and motivation for people like myself, and I'm sure for those listening, because it's like when you feel like giving up or you feel kind of threatened by failure, and you listen to other people's stories, that can help you keep pushing forward and moving forward. So on that note, like how how have you dealt with failure in your life, and how have you kept yourself motivated through maybe more difficult times, and then sort of got to the level of success that you got now?
I mean, like I said, I think of failure as a good thing. Like I seek out like new experiences that I may or may not succeed at because like I'm not afraid of the failure because it's always interesting. And then that places me in situations where like I wouldn't have been otherwise. And like, I love one of my favorite things is trying out new art forms that I've never done before, even if I'm not into it. Like I have this challenge, personal challenge called the Not My Jam challenge, where if I catch myself turning down any opportunity for no reason other than that it's not my jam, it's not my thing, I have to do it. And not it's not like Jim Carrey, yes man. Like I can say it's too expensive. I can say I don't have time. I can say that I don't like that person. I don't want to hang out with them. I can say like any reason, but if it's only like, nah, it's not my thing, then I have to do it. And so that's how I got into like doing radio, doing stand up comedy, doing like acting, doing poetry slams. And I've realized like, I've gone up on stage and I've bombed horribly and then realized like, oh, nobody cares. Nobody's like booing me. They're just like, that one didn't work as well, but it's still interesting to an audience to see someone try, and I'll keep trying and I'll enjoy it. And those all of these things have led to other opportunities and introduced me to other people. And I know a lot of people who are like, I just gave up trying because I submitted like 10 times and nothing ever got picked up. And I'm like, I submit 10 times in a day. Like I'll just like think of 10 things I'd like to do and submit them. And like after 1,000 of them, one really cool one gets picked up. Like there's nothing like if you're afraid of every rejection, then like you're never gonna make anything happen. And I just like, and even every one of those rejections, it's not like these 99 didn't work and this one did. Like every one of those pitches you send to a publisher, they're seeing it, they're noticing your name. And even if just because they turn down your work, your book or something doesn't mean that they hate it and they hate you and they never want to publish you. Just like as an actor, if you're turned down for a role, that doesn't mean that they hate you. Like they're looking for a very specific thing. In a role, they're looking for someone to. They're thinking about like people get rejected for acting roles because like, oh, this person is like 1 inch shorter than we wanted, or like a million reasons. With a book, it's like we're thinking about our entire slate. We already have a book in this realm. We need something like this. They have all these things they're thinking about, and maybe they're like, oh, I love this book, but it doesn't really fit with us right now. But they're like, I'm gonna remember that name because it sounds like sounds interesting, and then like maybe the next time they'll be like, oh, great, perfect, I can publish this one.
Mm.
So nothing is a failure, I mean, unless I'm sure there's a way you can make a book that's a complete failure and like ruins your life, but I'm sure you can come up with some creative way to do it. But if you just didn't get published or it didn't get the sales you wanted or anything like that, it's all leading forward and you just gotta have patience. Like I wasn't able to make a living full time doing my own stuff until like 2 years ago, like when I was like 40. Um,
Oh wow.
I
Okay.
I'd previously been a full time artist, but doing like custom comics for people and drawing like draw our company CEO as a rock star, draw my boyfriend as a superhero. Uh, I did a lot of comics for pharmaceutical companies, like, and I and I did that for like a decade before I realized, oh wait, I hate everything I've made in the last decade. Maybe I should stop. And then I decided to devote myself only to things that I love making. And then it took me another decade until I was able to make any money off of that. So, um, like it can take a long time, but that's why if you want to go into creative field, make sure it's something you really, really love because I never noticed that I wasn't making any money off of it until like suddenly I was. And I'm like, you can make money off this stuff? Like I remember I always swore like I don't need an agent. I'm getting work all the time. And then as soon as I got that agent, and she sent me my first book offer, I'm like, I think there's a typo. She's like, no. I'm like, what do you mean they're going to give me that much money? And she's like, well, I'm still negotiating. I'm gonna try and double it. And I'm like, you can do that? You can get money for this stuff? Like, there's too many zeros here, ma'am. And apparently, you can get paid for this stuff if you just love it enough that you don't notice that you didn't make money for 40 years.
Thank you so much for sharing that, man. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I've got some more crazy
Mm-hmm.
experiences of yours to talk about. Talk to us about the time that you pulled a prank on Vladimir Putin.
Uh, okay, so many years ago, if listeners remember the old ancient website of LiveJournal,
Oh yeah, good
it
times.
was it's just a social media network. It was just like a journal. You posted stuff and go in your feed, but instead of like Twitter, you could write as much as you wanted. Pretty similar to Tumblr. And they had a mascot called Frank the Goat, and it was a very active place for artists to share their work and talk about their work. And I one day volunteered to make the official comic of their mascot because I wanted trying to like get attention and get known. And like I just volunteered to do. I wasn't getting paid anything, but like I got a contract that like I have the license to make a comic about him, and I did that for a while, and then it was a very successful comic. Got me a lot of attention and got me a lot of readers, and then eventually LiveJournal got sold to a Russian company, and I didn't even know who I would talk to anymore about the comic, who I should email. So I'm just like, I guess this is a good enough time to stop the comic, forgot about it. And then like a decade later, I was listening to a podcast that's also now defunct called Reply All, and they were talking about the true story of what happened at LiveJournal. And it turned out what had happened was that LiveJournal had become very popular in Russia among activists because they needed a place where they could safely share their concerns. People that are against Vladimir Putin, against the dictatorship, like LGBTQ people that are being like discriminated against in Russia, they're using that as a way to discuss their issues. And Putin didn't like that, and he asked LiveJournal to like give him their names and addresses, and they're like, no, we're not going to do that. So he just had a Russian company buy LiveJournal so they could move the servers into Russia, and then they could look up their names and then crack down on the activists. And so this website that I had loved had been turned into like a tool for hunting down activists and destroying their lives and putting them in jail, whatever they were doing. And I didn't know about this until then. And then I realized I still had number one, I still had a contract that I could make comics using their mascot. And number two, I still had the login to upload them to their official site. So I made a comic where Frank the Goat was talking about um, how important it is to speak your mind and speak up against fascism and support all types of people. I had his sister come out as gay in the comic, and yeah, I posted it, and yeah, I got interviewed by the BBC about it. It caused
Oh
much
man.
stir, and no reaction ever from Russia. They it's still up. They still haven't taken away my login for it. Um, But yeah, I got to punk Putin. I haven't heard from him, but I also wonder if I ever go to Russia, is my name on a list somewhere of like, let's have a chat with this guy.
You'll say they might not roll out the red carpet for you. Maybe not. Talk us through your experience of walking through Kim Jong Il's secret tunnels to North Korea. I thought this was fascinating.
Yeah, that's I mentioned that tour of the DMZ,
Hmm.
and one of the tours you can do is there was one point where Kim Jong Il decided to dig tunnels so he could attack Seoul, but Seoul discovered them and just capped them off, and now they have like tour groups come, little kids with their balloons, and like that was what was interesting about that trip for me is like seeing how like it made him look like Wile E. Coyote because everything he did ended up being a tourist attraction on the other side. There was that, and they also drove us past his fake city.
Yeah, I've
They're
heard about
like,
this.
they're like, you guys
It's
see that city over there?
it's like right on.
Yeah,
So for those who don't know, in North Korea, yeah, right near the border, but like not right next to it. It's like a little bit of water, isn't there? A little body of water, and then
Yeah,
there's if you're looking from South Korea into North Korea, you'll see a city, but no one's living there.
yeah,
All they're all empty buildings. It's just
yeah,
a pretend city. It's the
yeah.
weirdest thing.
Like people on the North Korean side were looking across the border and seeing Seoul and getting jealous, and he's like, "Well, I'm going to make them jealous," and he went and built literally just the hollow shells with windows painted on them, like,
Oh, they
and they're
weren't
like,
even real buildings, really.
yeah,
They were
they're
just
just it's
walls.
like a film set. And
Oh,
you see that laundry hanging on top of the roof? That laundry has been there since 1964 or whatever. And like, and this whole time he's building it, they're like, we can see you, right? Like we're watching you build this. Like we know it's not real. But he's like, in his mind, he's like, well, my people believe everything I say, so they're gonna believe it too, right? And he just spent all of this money and manpower building this fake city that he could have just like done something for his people, but instead it just became a joke that they bring tourists to.
strange. Very, very strange. Um, Talk us through your experiences as an ambassador to Australia.
Yeah, that was when I was in high school. It's just there's people to people student ambassadorship program, things high school students still do today. And I went to Australia, and it was an amazing trip. But then, like in my mind, I thought it was going to be like, oh, I'm gonna, I had all these things like, am I going to be brokering peace deals? What am I doing? But then, like, I get there, I'm like, wait, this is like a package tour, which is great. But like, I'd set it up so much that like, that's where my book series Student Ambassador came from. It like I made a book series about what I imagined it would have been like as a kid. Like it's this book series where like he's traveling the world solving mysteries and cracking cases and making world peace. And so yeah, I mean it was just a very nice package tour where we got to go. We met the mayor one day. We stayed in someone's house, and one day we stayed on a cattle farm in a barn, and just got to see as much of the country as we could, interact with other kids. Yeah, it's a nice little trip.
It's awesome, man. Talk to us about your work with For Exposure, what you achieved, and why you chose to ultimately end it.
Yeah, well, For Exposure was a Twitter account that I ran that just had quotes from people who don't want to pay artists. Just the most ridiculous quotes I could find, and justifications, and people getting angry that someone won't work for free. And like it went incredibly viral, incredibly fast. I think at the height it had like uh, I think it's still about a quarter of a million followers on there.
Damn.
Just because people kind of like relate to it, and yeah, it did a lot of good because like especially a lot of the places where I would get quotes from early on, like suddenly the quotes would disappear because people would realize they're just going to be quoted on for exposure text, and then people started using it as shorthand, and someone would post a job or ask someone to do something, they'd be like, "This sounds like for exposure text." And so it did a lot of good, but it was not fun to run because it's especially if you do something that big. That's goal is to like get people angry. They get real angry and they let you know about it. And so like even the well-meaning people, like people used it as a way to like vent their frustration, and they would just reply and like yell at the person who posted initially, but those alerts go to my phone. So all day I'm like, you piece of trash. I'm like, what? Oh, okay, for exposure, for exposure, for exposure. Okay. But then like sometimes the people that get quoted get angry at me that I quoted them. And like one of them one time decided to like shut down my email by setting up a spam bomb and sending me like hundreds of thousands of emails per minute so that Gmail shuts my account down. And that happened while I was working on the TV deal. And every moment my email's down, I'm like, I could be losing uh, once in a lifetime opportunity here. I was losing work. It took weeks of nonsense to get it taken care of. Death threats, and then just people following like literally everything about it, everything I did. One person would be angry that I didn't post names. One person would be angry that I did one time, like because I'm talking about a politician, it's a public figure. Everything I did, someone yelled at me. So I'm like, I'm glad that this exists, but I hate running it. And then when Elon Musk bought Twitter, and I'm like, I've quoted that guy like 10 times on this account, and I thought like this is a good time to end it. To be like, I don't want to do this for his benefit when he like work for exposure for him. So I'm just going to end it here, make a point, and I felt like once I did it, I felt so much relief. Um, I feel like For Exposure did its job. It made a lot of change. It of course can never fix the problem, but I think it's there as a. It lasted about 10 years. It's there as a 10-year project, and I hope it still can do good as that.
What are your thoughts on Elon Musk acquiring Twitter and what that means for artists and such?
Yeah, I don't know. It's basically just like if you gave an 8-year-old something and he just does whatever he wants at any point and doesn't worry about how it affects other people. And I mean, I'm still on Twitter as my personal account because
Hmm.
that's where I've built my community. That's where I know how to reach people. Uh, and it's just kind of like, um, who knows what this guy is going to do next, but let's see if we can survive it. I don't know.
Well,
Next.
I'll say this much: his blue verification tick thing is being modeled by Meta. I hate calling them Meta. Facebook, Meta. Even the name is dumb. Sorry. Um, just in terms of like internet culture, that word, that of all the words they chose that word as their company name. But anyway, yeah, they're modeling their system after Twitter. So, and I was saying about half a year ago in some streams that I think that most companies, social media companies, will base their future verification system on that probably because it's another way to make money, and that's what it's
Yeah.
all about.
If the verification ever actually verified anything, maybe that'd be nice, but it's just, yeah, it's, I don't know.
You're just paying
It's,
for a tick. That's it.
yeah.
Paying really for any say like. I mean, it'd be fine if you were truly paying for like security. I understand that, but um, yeah, it's just paying for a tick at this point. Talk us through your most memorable experiences as a voiceover actor in Bollywood.
Yeah, well, like as I was living in India, one of my trips, I decided it'd just be fun to get into it. At first, I did a couple of commercials. Um, my first one was for a bank, and they asked me to come in and be a cricket announcer.
Oh, cool.
And they just started playing the footage, and I said, "Go!" And I'm like, "Where's a script?" And they're like, "Oh, you don't need a script. Just like announce what's happening." I'm like, "I don't know what's happening. I don't know cricket." And they're like, "Just make it up." And I'm like, "I don't think you want me to do that." And they're like, "Go!" And I'm like, "There's a guy and he's got a bat, but it's flat, and he's hitting a ball. And I know there's wickets. I know there's wickets. That's a thing." And they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know how it works. I've only heard the word wicket." And they're like, "Fine, let me write a script." And then they had me do it. And that was kind of my experience. And most of it is that like they didn't give me a script; they just wanted me to wing it. Because the big one that I did was a movie called Apka Surur, the movie, The Real Love Story, which has three misspellings in its own title. Love is spelled Luv, movie is spelled Moviee. Uh, and it was the feature debut of a musician that everybody hated. He was kind of like the Simon Cowell on the knockoff of American Idol. And nobody liked him. Like, even all my friends, after it came out, all my friends that love Bollywood movies, like, I'm not going to go see that with you. I'm like, I'm in it. They're like, I don't care. So basically, they filmed this movie in Germany, but they didn't bring microphones with them, and they redubbed the entire movie.
Oh,
And so my job was I was with a group of foreigners, and they just fast forwarded through the movie. And anytime they saw a white person speaking, they'd pause and be like, "Who wants to play this guy?" And then they'd grab someone, bring them up, and then you'd redub the lines. There was actually a German guy there, but they wouldn't let him talk because they didn't like his accent. So it's just any of us just playing all these German characters. And it was so slapdash that like there's one character that's supposed to be a German news reporter, but it was played by an Indian actor because they forgot to film it when they were in Russia, so they had someone in India do it. And then they had an American woman dub the voice, but then the American woman dubbed left. So the next time that character is on screen, she was dubbed by an Irish woman. And then the third time she's dubbed by an Australian. And I'm like, you realize the second woman's still there. They're like, I don't care. I want to go home. And they just like, so literally every time this character is on screen, she has a different accent and voice. And my part was playing a police officer. And they see a police officer, they pause, they show me the scene, like, okay, you're gonna play this. I'm like, where's the script? They're like, there's no script. The line is just what the hell. And I'm like, that's great. He talks for 3 minutes. And they're like, yeah, say what the hell. I'm like, you want me to improvise? Like, no, you're not allowed to improvise. I'm like, you want me to just say what the hell for 3 minutes? And they're like, yeah, sure, go. And so just to show them how stupid that was, they hit play, and I said, "What the hell? What the hell? What the hell is going on here? What the hell are you doing? What the hell?" For 3 minutes, and at the end, I'm like, "See, that didn't work," and they're like, "Moving on," and it's in the film.
What?
Yeah,
I don't. Do you know? I've worked on some Bollywood films as well, and I can um confirm that it is exactly like this. I remember one particular one I did at the beginning of this year. They're quite notorious for like only doing one take. So like, I remember one of the lead actors was just like, we did one take, and then he sort of sarcastically just turned around and went, "Oh, that was good, was it? Don't fancy doing another one? No, just we're gonna go with that one. Yeah, all right, guys. All right, no worries then." And it was like that. It was just like
yeah.
done,
Well,
done.
one of the funniest things about this movie, Himesh Reshammiya, who was the star, after right before it came out, he decided he wanted to go to pray for its success, to a big temple, but he was convinced that if he went as himself, he would be so mobbed by adoring fans that it would disrupt the service. So he decided to dress head to toe in a women's burqa to hide his identity, and then went in the women's section and was praying. And then as he bowed, his entire hairy leg was visible, and someone realized that there was a man in disguise, and it caused a terrorism scare.
Oh my
And
god.
the police came and shut down the temple and grabbed him, and he's like, "It's me, it's a Metro Shemi," and they're like, "Who?" And nobody knew who he was. And
Oh man, imagine being humbled in that way, in the worst possible way.
yeah,
What was it like running with bulls in Mexico?
yeah, that when I was living in Mexico, I decided that's something I want to do. I heard it was happening, and I showed up. And then I realized, like, oh, you're supposed to sign up for this like months in advance. But I'm like, I'm just gonna jump the barrier. What are they gonna do? And I jumped the barrier and I started running, and all of a sudden I keep running. I look back and I realize, like, these are babies, and I stop, and one of them just comes up, and I pet it like a baby cat, like it's adorable. And then I found out that the year previous, someone had been killed by a bull, so that year they brought babies, and
Oh,
they couldn't hurt anybody, which is, I mean, that's fine. I still got to run with bulls, and I didn't get gored, and I got to pet a cute baby, so that was nice. And then I just kind of like ran with them. We were having fun, you know.
that's sweet. That's a nice story. I like that. You lived in a volcano. What was that
Not in
experience
the
like?
volcano, on a volcano.
On a volcano.
Yeah. But yeah, that was just when I was living in Panama. Uh, Volcan Baru was the volcano, and it's just this. It's all coffee fields up and down it. Just had a lovely little house there, and yeah, I'd been living in Costa Rica first. In a, I think I mentioned the place so remote that I needed to go shopping in Panama, and then one of those trips, I'm like, wait, I could just live here. And so my wife and I moved to Panama and found this lovely house in this on the side of this volcano, and lovely little community. You know, never erupted or nothing, so it was all good,
Yeah,
cozy.
we didn't fully explore the Costa Rica time. You said that you lived in a rainforest. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Basically, it was a little peninsula in the ocean, and it's just yard was full of monkeys um, and sloths and alligators and Jesus, like the little Jesus lizards that run in the water, and yeah, very cozy time, but very remote. Like I said, 12-hour trips to buy bread, go to the
Jeez.
supermarket. But yeah, I mean, uh, very adorable monkeys. Had a little troop. The monkeys. I'm trying to remember what stories I told. Tell me if I'm repeating a story I told last time. But the monkeys were so smart. Since it was a long trip to get groceries, there was a guy that would come once a week and deliver. He had like fruits and vegetables in the back of his truck. When I first moved there, I thought he was a political figure because everyone had these signs that said Emilio sí and Emilio no, and I thought they're like, yes, Emilio, no, Emilio, but that was just yes or no. Do you want me to stop and sell you bananas? And
Oh.
so we had our little sign. He'd go along the peninsula, stop at every house, and every time he came, the monkeys would send two ambassadors that would walk along the electrical lines and watch what everyone bought. And they go all the way to the end of the peninsula. It took hours. And then when he reached the last house, they'd run all the way back to the tree full of everyone, and they'd bring all the monkeys. And the people who bought the stuff they wanted, they'd stop at those houses. Like, this house bought bananas today, we're coming here. And they just go in your tree out your window and look really cute, trying to get you to give them bananas. And if you didn't, they'd break into your house. We had monkeys like uh, open our windows and come in and steal all our fruit before. And I'm like, hey, that's fine. I get to see a monkey in my kitchen.
Imagine just waking up in the morning and having to like fight a monkey for like a fucking your morning fruit. Like, speaking of you sort of having to tackle animals, you were also a gator wrangler. How did
Yeah.
this happen? And walk us through this.
Well, I was brought out to Florida once to work on a film. I was originally hired as a grip, the guy that carries all the equipment. And then while I was there, I had a horrific injury that made it so I couldn't lift things. And then instead became a designer where I was drawing stuff for the film. Uh, and then one day there was a scene with an alligator, and they're like, and the company that brings the alligators there, like, we need someone to help carry the alligator. And I'm like, I'll do it. And they're like, hey, didn't you have a horrific injury and you're not allowed to carry stuff? I'm like, how often do you get to wrangle a gator? Come on, let me do it. So I got to help carry around the gator for the day and stand by and like make sure it doesn't run away. And they, as you carry it, they have its mouth bound and they put it down, they unwrap it, then you do the shots, and then I'm standing there to make sure, like, passersby don't walk down the sidewalk and trip over a gator, and then once the shot's done, you help carry the gator back into the truck. Yeah, nice little day of gator wrangling. It was only a day, but it was memories that last a lifetime.
What was the temperament of the gator like? Was it okay with you?
It was pretty chill. He's doing a job. He's an actor. He knows what's up.
You weren't scared at all or nervous?
Nah, I mean, you got one of those professional movie animal wrangler guys. He knows what he's doing.
Awesome, man.
I mean,
Uh,
the stuff I'd already been through on that trip. Like I said, I had a testicular torsion, which is the least fun
oh,
thing to do in the world.
oh no.
It just randomly, like, of all the places I've been, of all the dangerous situations I've been in, that was the time I literally almost died. And I was sitting on a sofa drawing a comic, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel good at all. I need to go to the hospital. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I need to go to the hospital right now. And they're like, you're sitting on the sofa. I'm like, yep, I need to go to the hospital. And it was horrifying. A whole day of, like, I get to the hospital and they're like, there's only one guy in the state who can treat this, and he's on vacation. We're flying him in from the golf course. And so I just laid there all day, like, pain puking into a bucket as, like, doctors come in and look at me and be like, you better get that treated or it's going to explode. And I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
and then, yeah, that was not a fun time. So after that, wrangling a gator, that's not going to scare me.
Couple of quick fire questions for you to end things today. Um, what's the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've ever received. Let me think about that. I have to imagine, like I said, just I forget who originally said it to me because I've said it myself so much now. But like I said, just don't be afraid of your failures. Embrace them, appreciate them, and learn from them, and they often lead to better things.
And what's the biggest life lesson you've learned so far?
Biggest life lesson I've learned so far is that you can survive more than you think you can. Uh, if you are able to approach a situation and figure out how you can, try and get yourself out of it without panicking and without, like, thinking woe is me, uh, you can, there are horrible situations that you very very much within your right to think woe is me, but you can survive more than you think you can.
And as we draw things to a close, one final question for you. Do you have any upcoming projects or some final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I hope people check out my new book that's out in a few days called Occulted. That is the true story of my friend Amy Rose, who grew up in a cult just down the road from Heaven's Gate, where she was taught that Star Trek was real, Gandhi was a sexy space alien, the world was ending, and that the middle aged woman who made her life hell was the reincarnation of a sci fi god. And it's all about how she learned she was in a cult and used banned books to learn everything she needed to escape. And I'm very honored to be able to work on that story with her. It's out this month. Hope people check that out. My next student ambassador book comes out in the winter, and then I have like hundreds of other books coming. So just watch RyanEstrada.com and go there and read all the free comics, and then eventually you'll see announcements about new stuff.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show twice. Thank you so much for your time and for all the wonderful stories and insights into your life. And yeah, just been a real pleasure, Ryan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good
And
one.
to you too, man, and to all the listeners of the Christian Reeve podcast, I hope you enjoyed these episodes as much as I did. Be safe, be well, and I'll see you in the next one.